Good morning. So far, so good. I'm grateful for the ledge because that took my nerves away. I was way more nervous walking down that than giving the speech. So it's an honor to address you guys primarily today, even though I can't see you. It's been my great privilege and joy to work with these incredible students at the university that I graduated from as both an undergraduate and at the J School that I also attended. Berkeley has unquestionably been the most transformative institution of my life, and I really hope it's the same for all of you. When I thought about what I wanted to say to you at the culmination of this journey, I initially thought about the many things I didn't have a chance to teach. How to perfect your pitch, how to edit a snazzy work sample, how to handle rejection and stories falling apart, how to weather the turbulence of this career, which has very high highs and often low lows. But then I realized that those are all things that are part of your work to come. They're not easy, but you'll figure them out and you'll get better with practice and experience. So I thought, if there was one thing I wanted to leave you with, what would that be? What can I say that hasn't likely been said in your time here? And what have I learned over the last 20 years of doing this work? During the last few years of my professional career in documentary film, much of my work has focused on teaching artists how to be journalists, encouraging them to embrace our core practices: fairness, research, data, documents, fact-checking. I have especially been on a quest to encourage filmmakers to claim the hard-fought rights of a free press as their own. But today I decided I would turn the tables a bit and pose the opposite challenge to the graduates. To challenge you behind me to approach your work not just as journalists, but to see yourself as artists and your work as art. Now that you have mastered the long-held traditions of journalism, I want you to break the mold. Not the rules are righteous. I want you to break the mold. I want you to seek and embrace the part of yourselves that is most creative, most innovative, and perhaps even most interesting, because that's what it's going to take to keep our work relevant. My challenge to you is not just to inform, but to engage. And who is more adept at engaging people across race, class, and politics than great artists? Artists whose work stands the test of time and often hold the most biting and truthful commentary of a particular era or experience. I learned recently from a documentary that in his day, Beethoven was considered highly daring and experimental, pushing music to new forms. The British Library says that his, quote, exploratory works could puzzle players and audiences alike. And yet, more than 200 years later, this is ubiquitous. Recognize that? That's Symphony number 5, part of a series of symphonies that were so novel that an early music critic allegedly said that one needed to hear new works such as these several times before reaching an opinion about them. So I'm going to ask you to close your eyes, all of you. Close your eyes. And I'm going to invoke the artist Frida Kahlo. Who can see her? Okay, you can open your eyes. Can you see her? Raise your hand. Raise your hand if you can see her. Do you see the woman she was, or her representation of herself reflected in her paintings? Is she 4-dimensional, or is she 1-dimensional? Can you see her brow and her braids, the flowers in her hair? Can you see her pain and her aesthetic? I think many of us here can. Why are her self-portraits so indelible? What do they make us feel? It's likely different for each of us, and yet our common understanding of her image, our recognition of Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, is something that many of us here share. Those of us who are from Richmond, and what did we hear? We heard Egypt, Saudi Arabia, right? They touch us in a deep, visceral, inexplicable way. I connect with the Fifth Symphony and Frida Kahlo's image much more in some ways than I connect with the articles I read yesterday, and I probably read about 15 of them. Or with much of the journalism I consume. I'm well informed, but I'm not activated, and I'm rarely affected. Like many of you, I sit helpless reading the headlines and wonder what it would take to move me. At a moment when tolerance is dissipating on all sides of the political spectrum, it's clear that simply informing the public isn't adequate, that publishing an investigation or creating a historical record is not enough. With trust of the media at an all-time low, perhaps journalism, as it has been practiced, is sometimes part of the problem. How can we ensure that journalism becomes part of the solution? That, I believe, will take not more facts, but more artistry. I think the poet Audre Lorde explained it best. When speaking about the Black experience, she said, "Our feelings are our most genuine paths to knowledge. They are chaotic, sometimes painful, sometimes contradictory, but they come from deep within us. And we must key into those feelings and begin to extrapolate from them, examine them for new ways of understanding our experiences. This is how new visions begin, how we begin to posit a new future nourished by the past." As you seek your own artistic vision, remember it was the great filmmaker Marlon Riggs, a gay Black man, a target of the right wing, who put the J Schools documentary program on the map. Marlon Riggs is our legacy and is still considered one of the most innovative storytellers in modern cinema. When speaking of his seminal avant-garde work, he explained, "Changing my mind about traditional history has been part of my evolution. Before, I considered history and mythology, fact and fiction, as separate and discrete. Now I don't think so, in terms of how they inform us and work within us to make us who we are as individuals, as a culture, as a group, a race, and a nationality." Like Marlon Riggs, like Audre Lorde, I want you to challenge the norms that you've been taught, the narratives that may be fact for some and fiction for others. I challenge you to touch people emotionally, to evoke a reaction, to focus more on what we have in common than that which divides us, to spark the possibility that someone, somewhere, might change their mind about something. I challenge you to make it impossible to ignore, impossible to forget, impossible to scroll by that which you're trying to share with us. I challenge you to produce prose, audio, photographs, moving images, in any other form to make indelible impressions on not just our heads, but also our hearts. This is not exactly an artist's manifesto, but here's what I've learned in my own work, which has been more varied, expansive, and artistic than I ever could have imagined. Define your own success. Don't take yourself too seriously, but take the work deadly seriously. Seek beauty and laughter, even in darkness. Immerse yourself in the arts. Be humble, be vulnerable. Be kind to yourself and to others. Be honest and direct. Have integrity. Know your privilege. Know your bias. Be daring, be provocative. Respond to obstacles with creativity. Welcome crashing and burning. And do your work with love. In an interview, the incomparable Lourdes Portillo told me this, and it stayed with me. Love is like water in the work that we do. We have to fall in love with what we think we are going to do. You have to love the idea and its possibility. You have to see all the wonderful possibilities that you might have something to say. And it isn't just, this is a good idea. It's, this is something that is really profound, that can speak to me in so many ways that I'm going to embark on it. I cannot wait to see what all of the graduates embark on with journalistic rigor, with vision, with love, and with artistry. Thank you. I'll miss you all very much.